Welcome to Age Potential TV. I'm Lori Campbell, your host, gerontologist, and advocate of your best life, here to introduce you to an emerging trend called Age Potential. Here's to living out your age potential. Thrivers are known to create and live passion-centered lives. At 93 years young, Betty Strohfus continues to have a burning passion for taking flight and piloting airplanes. Betty went from sitting in a tree, dreaming about flying, to serving during World War II as a woman Air Force service pilot, better known as WASP, from 1943 until WASP disbanded in December of 1944, and continues to fly any chance she gets. Welcome, Betty.
Thank you, dear. I am glad to be here.
Well, wonderful.
I love to tell my story.
Well, wonderful. We're excited to hear it. What a journey you've been on. What sparked your interest to be a pilot when women didn't veer from traditional roles?
Well, you know, I really didn't think too much about it, but there was a gentleman that would come up to the office when I was deputy registrar of deeds, and he filed papers, chattels, and mortgages. And one thing, he started talking about flying. Well, as a youngster, I always liked to climb up high on top of trees, on top of whatever, even roofs. Anyway, I love to see this world our Lord made for us. So he started talking about his flight crew that he flies with. Piper Cub was what they flew in, and they called themselves the Faribault Air Group. Pilots, and there were 15 of the men, and so he asked me if I'd like to have a ride, and I said sure would. So he brought me out to the local airport, and this fella, Hal Vogel, gave me a ride in the little Piper Cub, and we went up and went into a stall, into a spin, looked around, and I said, one more time? And after 10 one more times, he didn't look around any longer. He said, he got on the ground and he looked kind of green. And he said, you know, whatever you do, you're going to have to fly. You're the only person that made me sick. And I've never been sick in an airplane. I should have been, but I never was.
That's wonderful. So you were in WASP, correct? What was the mission of WASP?
The WASP took over because during that time in 1943, as we were bombed, and there were not too many men pilots at the time, and the one that were pilots, they were sent overseas to combat with very little training. So they needed women to do the fairing of the airplanes from the airfield, from the factory to the field, or from field to field, and they did not have enough pilots to do that. General Hap Arnold was in charge of the Air Force at the time, and our dear friend Jacqueline Cochran said, I have a group of women that I know could handle military aircraft. And so with General Hap Arnold and with my friend Jacqueline Cochran, and then Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife at that time, and Jacqueline Cochran, and also Hap Arnold was a great supporter of women pilots, and that's how it happened.
Sure. I'm curious to know, now you actually trained the men, correct, to fly? Is that right? You trained the men?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And how did the men feel having a female be the trainer, so to speak?
Well, they weren't too happy about it, but I tell you, I also was an instrument instructor at the airport, and those years they got a great big hood over the back seat where they sat, and they couldn't get out of that until we let them out, so they had snaps on the outside. And so they were very leery about my doing that because they just did not, and it's understandable. We were the first women to fly military aircraft. It's understandable. They were very leery about our flying. But I told them, just take off with the plane. He and I were in it, and we got up to 5,000 feet. I had him shake the wheel, and I said, okay, I'm in control. And I did all kinds of acrobatics just to show him whatever attitude he got our plane and I could pull out of. He looked a little bit like that fellow that gave me my first ride. And so after that, I had no problem giving the fellas their instrument training. I enjoyed it.
Sure.
And I just not wanted them to know that I could fly airplanes.
Absolutely. You gained their respect, obviously.
Yes, ma'am, I
yes,
did.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted.
Absolutely. So tell me, when you're up in the flight, what are you feeling? What's the exhilaration like for you?
Oh, it was just, I can't express it. It was such a wonderful feeling to be flying, and to be flying in military aircraft. Oh, I'm telling you, I was a happy camper, and I really enjoyed. Also, what we did at the Las Vegas airfield, we trained gunners, and we'd dive in. There'd be 3 B-17s below us, and we'd be about 2,000 feet above them. We'd dive in at them, and they'd shoot at us with camera guns, and that was great.
Wow, you were never fearful? Nothing? I mean, were you ever nervous?
I had no problem.
No problem.
And we also with the B-26, that was a twin-engine bomber, and it had very short wings, but once you got it in the air, it was a beautiful plane to fly. And I was a co-pilot on that. We had a big low tow rope behind that, and then we had like a big windsock behind that, and they shot at that with actual ammunition. And the fighters had put in the different colored bullets, red and green and yellow and white or whatever, and so whoever shot that many bullets into the sock would have the best score of the day.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Oh, I can just tell the love is in your heart for this. Yes.
It was wonderful.
Yes, wonderful. Do you have a favorite airplane that you
Oh,
flew?
honey, the one I was flying at the time, they're all my favorite.
Everyone.
Yes.
One stands out for you.
Well, one of them, the AT-6 I did enjoy, because that's what we usually did with diving on the B-17. That was a beautiful 350 horsepower and covered canopy, and the wheels got up and away we went. It was a wonderful time for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you were among the group of women, very first women to really fly with the armed forces.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
it was just recently that you were recognized. How did that come all about?
Well, I'll tell you, ma'am, we had 25,000 women that signed up to go into this program. They took in 1,834, and only 1,074 of them got their silver wings. So it was a very small elite group. And so, well, when we got our wings, then we were assigned to different airports where there were lots of men. And we had to show that we could fly anything they had there. We had to take a flight in to be sure that I knew how to handle an airplane.
And you did well, it sounds like.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, wonderful. What advice would you have to young women who also want to pursue some non-traditional career?
May I tell about the gal that I...
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you, I have been to the Blue Angels and to the Thunderbirds. And when I went to the Thunderbirds, there was a young lady that approached me, and she said, she was Carolyn Simpson. And she said, I tell you, I went to hear your speech about 8 years ago at some school she was at, and you know, you were so enthusiastic about flying, I decided I would take up flying. She's now number 3 in the Thunderbirds, and to me, that is worth all the time I go to schools and whatever. I've been to 28 states giving my programs, and I love to speak to the children because there's so much there. They have so much to give if they just get on the right path.
Sure. So obviously, you're a mentor to many young women.
Oh, yes. I've been many, many women, and I appreciate that. And I get beautiful letters from my school children. Oh, they write me the best letters, and they draw me pictures. In fact, I have a whole box of them, and I thought maybe my Patrick, who passed away shortly, he was going to make a book about it and saying letters from the heart. I hope my family goes through and does that because they're beautiful letters.
Does any one stick out for you? One letter of sort? Does anything stick out to you or that you want to share?
Well, one little lad wrote me and he said, you know, Miss Strohfus, I was Mrs. Roberts at the time. You know, Miss Roberts, he said, you have you have an old body, but you got a young head. Oh, I love that one.
Oh,
I love that
Sure.
one. And there were many others. I wished I could remember some of them. They were just precious.
sure, sure. Wonderful. Well, what ways do you think living out this dream? I mean, flying has been your dream, and you can tell. How do you think it's enhanced your life, Betty, over the years?
Well, I tell you, I always was a very shy person. And when I went into the service and when I saw that I could fly airplanes, I had a better respect for myself. And I thought, gee, I can do anything. If I can fly airplanes, I can do anything. And I tackled everything I could.
Sure. So it really increased your confidence.
It really did.
Sure.
It
sure.
really did.
Wonderful. So like you said, you continue to speak at schools and air shows and corporations. What is the message you leave with the people that you speak to?
Well, the younger ones, I say to follow their dreams. I followed my dream, and they told me women don't fly, and I just didn't believe them. So I just want them to follow their dreams. As long as it's illegal or immoral, you go for it.
Good advice. Wonderful. And you already told your story of Carolyn and how by your story, you were mentoring her, encouraging her to take a leap of faith and go into aviation and be a pilot. So that's
right.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So any other bits of wisdom that you would like to share before we go with the viewers? Anything that sticks out to you?
Well, you know, and I really felt, because I'm telling my stories, and I really think that has kept me alive and alert. Mm-hmm. And I feel great today. I'm 93 years old, but I feel great, and I'm going on. I'm going to the air show next month. I was at Fantasy of Flight last week and gave 2 or 3 programs. Had 3 other gentlemen with me, and I go to the Sun and Fun next month to Florida, and I'll tell you, I'm having a wonderful time. And I have so many friends. It's just wonderful. I am very blessed.
Well, you invigorate me, and I thank you for courageously serving our country and being a role model for knowing that, you know what, we can pursue our dreams. Dreams do come true, don't they?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
God bless.
Yes, nice to have you, Betty.
Thank you.
Betty turned her can'ts into cans and her dreams into plans. Won't you do the same? Until next time, remember, you are pure potential at every age and stage in life.